First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
How much water is in the glass? It depends who you ask. The optimist says this glass is half full. The pessimist says this glass is half empty. And the engineer points out that the glass contains twice the volume required for the amount of fluid available. What's the truth? How will we know the truth of this glass? That's an epistemological question. Let's bring in Plato. Plato would say that there is an abstract principle of glassness, an objective truth of a proper glass of water. There's an idealized form of glass of water, and I'm guessing it's perfectly full. And that truth is more pure than any particular glass that you could actually have in life. The empiricists would roll their eyes at Plato and say, you know the truth by the actual glass in front of you. This is what it is. We don't ever get a perfectly full glass of water, and if you did get one that was perfectly full, you'd spill it the minute you touched it. The truth, as I have understood it, is that the engineer is right. The glass and the water just don't match. To that, the optimist would say, no problem, we can just fill it up more. And the pessimist would worry, no, the water's already gone, we're already losing. It's just a glass of water, man. It's not doing anything. We are adding ourselves to the glass of water. We're adding our perceptions. We're talking about it. We're interpreting it. But it just is what it is. It's this many ounces of water in this big a glass. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. That's something we add to the water. In the Salatta Sutra from the Pali Canon of Buddhism, the Buddha was trying to explain to his disciples what he meant by the idea of suffering, that suffering is part of life. So he said, okay, look, imagine a wise monk who's basically enlightened and your average Joe on the street. Now, they're both going to experience pain, right? Because suffering is a part of life. They're both going to experience pain, but they're going to experience it differently. As one translation of the parable goes, the guy on the street will feel two kinds of pain: the physical pain, being in life, and mental pain. So just imagine if you were to shoot a man with an arrow and then right afterward were to shoot him with another one, so that he would feel the pain of two arrows. The guy on the street, having been touched by the pain of the first arrow, now adds the second arrow. He grieves, he laments, he beats his chest, he becomes distraught. He feels two pains, the physical one and the mental one. Whereas presumably the wise monk goes, I see I've been shot by an arrow. Now I get the guy on the street's response a lot more than I would get the wise monk's response. I think if that actually happened to me, I would say something like, oh my God, I've been shot by an arrow. I would probably say, this hurts so much. And then my mind would spiral into, how am I going to get to the hospital? Who will finish unloading these groceries? Will I miss 10 weeks of work as I recover from this? Will it leave a scar? And on and on and on. The first arrow is the actual suffering. The second arrow is the mental suffering we bring by interpreting our suffering. Right, so the Buddha goes on to say that the wise monk would feel the pain, he just wouldn't add the second arrow to it. Here is a glass of water. It's not full! It's supposed to be full! What if I get thirsty? What if it evaporates? Or, I see this is the amount of water I have. The second arrow, our interpretation, our expectation, our attachment to what we want the glass to be. Who told you that life would be a glass of full water? Who told you that if you did everything right, you could always avoid the first arrow? We are so surrounded by the answer to that question that it's almost hard to answer. It's like asking a fish to notice water. Who told us that we could earn a full glass of water? Everyone, all the time, constantly. We are swimming in the waters of you earn. What happens to you? There is an incomprehensibly large self-improvement industry that is feeding you a non-stop stream of messages that with enough self-starting drive, with enough initiative and discipline on your own part, you too will get the six-pack abs, you'll get the six-figure income. I feel like these days it should be 7, right? Okay, got to adjust. That if you just do everything right, you'll live to 100. You will deserve it, you will earn it. This current TikTok nutritional supplement TED Talk world is the latest iteration of an idea born from the original colonists to America. Many of the pilgrims were steeped in a kind of Calvinist theology that takes as its starting point Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn within a large family. And those whom he predestined, he also called, and those whom he called, he also justified, and those whom he justified, he also glorified. What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who is against us? Calvin, like many people who were interpreting this line, did not presume that you had to earn God's salvation. That was God's grace to you. But they did say that if you are in God's good graces, you'll notice it in your life. We see this today in the prosperity gospel. I don't know if you're familiar with this movement. It says that those who live in accordance with God will be blessed by God with their prosperity. In the case of Paul and Calvin and perhaps the prosperity gospel followers, although I'm not sure they read the Bible as clearly, it's not that we earn God's salvation. That's still God's grace. It's that we can tell who's in God's grace by the blessings in their lives. All this led the sociologist Max Weber to note a certain Protestant work ethic that marries capitalism and Christianity in a way that is a little bit uncomfortable, but it leads to this idea that idleness is sin, that you earn your life by your bootstraps, by your hustle. And so even if this is not your theology, even if this is not the water that you choose, it is the water you swim in, and you notice it every time there's a calculation in your head when someone gets hit by an arrow. Cancer, but he's so young and he's so healthy. I can't believe she was in a car accident. She's a careful driver. There has to be a reason for the arrow, a math that will somehow square up a bad thing happening to a good person. I knew someone who lived well into their 90s who was kind of mean-spirited, ate poorly, and had very few social connections. I lost a friend in their 40s who was physically fit, intellectually curious, socially connected, generous, a gem of a human. The math rarely adds up. The amount of water in the glass never correlates so directly with the worth of the person holding it. And not for nothing, we say that everyone has worth. No one has the power to stop the first arrow, and teachers have been saying this for millennia. It is the cost of living, that you will meet pain and illness and grief. There is no Oprah episode on... Is this on? Okay. There is no Oprah episode on living your best life. There is no TikTok video on life hacks. There is no religious or intellectual training that will give you the life without suffering. And it breaks my heart every day to realize this, that life is a package deal. You will get sorrow and grief and illness and death, but if you're awake to it, you will also get joy and love and health and life and little babies. The second arrow is the expectation, what we think we're owed, what we think it should be, a full glass of water, darn it. And once you get it into your heads that you are owed a full glass of water in recompense for your labors, you will do everything in your power to plan for the future of your water, to look to the past, to notice where you might have slipped and lost water, to spend every day maximizing water output. You could spend your entire adulthood lost in reflection about your childhood. You could spend your entire adulthood lost in worry about 6 months from now. But there was a teacher who worked with a student who was always lost in the future, a Buddhist named Yoda, who had an intransigent student named Luke who never was present. And so, to quote Yoda, all his life has he looked away, to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. Buddhism. Okay. Or another Buddhist, John Lennon, and no, I don't have a Liverpool accent. I tried, it just didn't stick. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. In other words, look, here, right now, water, drink it. Is the glass half full or half empty? It really depends who you ask. And it also depends how thirsty you are. So when my two oldest children were about 8 and 5, we were on a vacation, and they were anxious to move their bodies, but the next event on our itinerary wasn't until hours later. And I looked out, there was a beautiful hill just across the river. So I grabbed an apple and a bottle of water, and I said to them, see that hill across the river? Let's just hike up to the top of it. Let's get a view of the town. So we tied on our shoes and off we went. 1 bottle of water, 1 apple. Now this was one of those hills where you think it might be like a mile, but it actually goes back behind the hill and then a switchback and a switchback, and it was way more than they bargained for. Clearly, we did not have enough supplies for it, so I had to immediately ration sips of water and say, we are not going to eat this apple until we get to the top of the hill, but imagine how good it will taste. Well, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles later, you can judge my parenting, that's fine. We did reach the top, and sure enough, it was the best tasting apple they had ever eaten in their lives. Of course it was. They were exhausted. They were famished. Every bite lit up their brains on an fMRI. The best tasting apple is a family shorthand I use now for the exquisite kind of pleasure that comes from finishing something unexpectedly hard. And I'm guessing you have some experience like that in your life. Maybe you went on a horrible camping trip that was much colder and rainier than it was forecast. Oh, that first night of sleep back home, a hot shower and a mattress? You're like a princess. Or you're struggling financially, you've lost the past job, you haven't yet started the new job, you've been skipping meals to make the money work, but you get your first paycheck, and that dinner at McDonald's is a feast for a king. In this moment, this glass of water is nothing to me. It's nothing special. It would be my 5th glass of water this morning. Singers hydrate. But if I had gone 36 hours without water, every drop would be exquisite and priceless. So is the glass half empty or half full? It depends who you ask. It depends how thirsty they are. As I mentioned, this week, of course, is Thanksgiving. As a nation, we will practice our ritual of giving thanks for the blessings in our lives. In our families or chosen circles, we gather to eat well and to say thank you. And we honor that it's complicated. There is a deep grief for those who are no longer at the table with you, and I honor that. But there is a gratitude beneath that pain. It's a bit of a walk to get there, but there is. I am so grateful to have loved you. There is a kind of anxiety in some of our Thanksgivings around the relative who starts a fight. But there is, and this is a long walk to get there, but there is a gratitude beneath that. I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful that you respect me enough and you respect my mind enough to try and change it. You care enough about me to try and talk me into crypto. Gratitude is a powerful force. I don't think it will ever trick our brains into making every glass of water taste like salvation from a desert of thirst. I just don't think that's how brains work. But I do think that the practice of gratitude can remind us of the precious quality of the glass. Gratitude prevents us from taking things for granted. It prevents us from taking things for granted. Gratitude makes us mindful of the blessing of a glass of water, mindful of the blessing of an apple, mindful of the blessing of one another right here, right now. Another Buddhist quote, I'm being loose on this, is the Buddha asks, how many teeth in your mouth don't hurt right now? You forget to count that blessing. How many diseases do you not have right now? This water right here, right now. This body here, right now. These loved ones here, now. Because we will set ourselves up for misery and so much second arrow sorrow when we're fixed to a platonic ideal of what the glass should be. Our bodies should always work the same. Our loved ones should live forever. That car should always start when I turn the key. I deserve this. Excuse me, cosmic waiter. This glass is not as full as I ordered. There's a new sermon right there. That's just never been the deal with existence. Now we can and we should and we will grieve, we will lament, we will rage when things fall apart. I do not want to misinterpret the Buddhist parable to mean that we should never have feelings. Let's not gaslight ourselves over the deeply human and loving and normal responses we have to that first arrow. I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of crying. But when things fall apart, and they do, that's part of the deal, we can ease the suffering of that second arrow with our gratitude practices, and we can come back here to pick one another up. As we nurture our practice of gratitude, we can spend less time measuring precisely how much water is missing, just how much we're owed that isn't filled, and we can learn to spend our time savoring the sips we get. Because you and I are never going to have a full cup of water. And there's always something in the glass. With mindful gratitude, we may yet find that the cup is fuller than we thought, and it tastes better than we knew. Cheers.